How's it going, church? You guys going well? Doing well? How was Christmas? Was it all right? Yeah? Did you guys have good food? What's it called? Oh, wow. Yesterday, I saw that the guys had like a full lamb outside, and I was frothing at the mouth because it looked so delicious. But I did have a delicious lunch myself. I actually ate way too much food, and then in proper Christmas fashion, I slept for like 3 hours. It was very good. It was very good. It was lovely. But like Eliana said, we are in the final week of our Finish Strong series, and it's pretty appropriate. It's like the last week before the new year. It's very exciting. But yeah, we're in our last week of the Finish Strong series, and I hope that you guys have been enjoying the series so far. I hope that you guys have been able to take things and hopefully finish this year strong. And so, what's it called? In Hebrews, this is what the whole Finish Strong series is about, is this. And let us run with the perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. This is the whole concept of the Finish Strong series, right? We want to be finishing the strong year because Jesus finished that race, and he gives us that strength to persevere. And so, today, what I would love to do is actually explore this conversation with you guys, all right? A conversation that I'm actually incredibly passionate about, and I know that Gracegate is passionate about because everything that we do here, I feel is like this conversation that we're about to have. And it's the whole idea of setting up people to win, all right? So this is the conversation I want to have because I actually believe that when we're setting people up to win, we're actually finishing the year strong. We're actually running that race really, really strong. And I think applying that to the rest of this year that we have and actually applying that to the year that we have ahead allows us to finish strong. All right? So this is what I would like us to do. And actually, I want us to remember this one thing. If we walk away from today not listening to anything else, all right, this is the one thing that I want you to remember, is when we come across people that we see have great potential, all right? Because there are some of us here with amazing potential, all right? We have a choice to make, whether we want to help them or whether we want to hurt them. So if you don't remember anything from today, just remember this, okay? This is the most important thing. This is the one thing, all right? But with this, there's a tension. There's a tension with this idea of someone having a greater potential than me. I don't know about you guys, but I find this incredibly difficult because I think I have a lot of potential myself, okay? It's very egotistical, I feel. But I think I've got a lot of potential. But there are people with greater potential than me. And so it's a tension, right? And so when we notice that someone might have a greater potential than myself, which is hard enough already, but then as Jesus followers, we actually have to start thinking, or I think we should start thinking, well, actually, how can I set that person up to win? And so when you're this person that is noticing this greater potential than yourself, and you're having these thoughts of, well, actually, I feel like I need to set this person up, it's an incredibly difficult thing to think about. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation before. I have many times because there are many people with greater potential than me. And it's amazing, right? But it's hard. It's difficult. It's uncomfortable. And it's a hard pill to swallow. When I was in high school, I used to swim, all right, competitively. I don't look at it now, all right? I had less hair on the face, okay? And I wore a swim cap and Speedos and all sorts. It was a look. It was great. But I used to swim, thank you. I used to swim competitively in high school. And one year, or a couple of years, but this one year in particular, I was chosen to go and represent my school internationally. And so we went to Indonesia, and we swam in Indonesia, and it was fantastic. And it's like the best of the best, right? You don't get chosen unless you're like really fast or really good or whatever it is, right? So we go to the competition, and my strongest swimming stroke was backstroke, all right? And so the event came up, which is like the best event. I was like, man, I'm going to smash this. I'm going to come first place. It's going to be great. I came dead last. It was terrible, dead last. And I cried. I cried so hard. It was such a disappointing time for me because I thought, man, I have the potential to actually win this race. I have the potential to get points for my team. I have the potential to get a medal, all this kind of stuff, and I came dead last. And so as I was crying, and as I was in the corner sitting by myself feeling sorry for myself, my coach came up to me. And I remember this because it has actually stuck with me throughout the years. And as I was preparing for this talk, I remembered it, and I was like, wow, that was actually such an important moment in my life. And he said to me, hey, look, I brought you on this trip because you are a good swimmer. You're a great swimmer. You're not the best swimmer, but you're a great swimmer. But actually, one of the main reasons why I brought you on this trip is because we've got young guys here that it's their first time. And I know that you could actually encourage them. Now, these young guys, they had crazy potential. They had sky-high potential. And I'm not talking about like they were just good in high school. I'm talking about like they've represented their countries nationally now. They've gone for trials for the Olympics in swimming. Like, they're that good, right? And here I am. I don't swim anymore, right? And for me, in that moment, I had a choice to make. I could either say, no, look, I am going to focus only on me. I'm the one with the great potential here. You brought me on this trip, so I'm going to focus on me. Why should I focus on these other guys? Why should I focus on these young people? They've got great potential, but it's about me, right? Gladly, I didn't. And they did really well, and they're swimming competitively nationally and for the Olympics and all sorts. But this is a tension. And I believe that it's actually very, very real, whether we recognize it or not. And hopefully after this, we do recognize it. Because I think this is a tension that's not just in swimming. I think this is a tension that we can feel in our families. I think this is a tension that we can feel in our workplaces. I think this is a tension that we can feel in our churches, in our friend groups. Whatever you can think of, I truly believe that this is a tension that we face. When we see someone with greater potential and we feel or we know that, hey, it actually might be my responsibility to set this person up to win. It's difficult. And in those moments, like I said before, we have a choice to make. Whether we want to help those with great potential than ourselves or whether we want to hurt them. Whether we can actually notice that there might be a bigger picture that God might be doing, in which God actually places us in a role that sets up that person to win so that God may use them, right? So the choice that we face with this tension isn't something new because I think we've experienced this in some way, shape, or form, or we will experience this in some way, shape, or form. Now, there's a story in the Bible. There are many stories in the Bible. But I think this story communicates this tension and this choice really well, right? So, how many of us have heard of the story of David? For some of us, we might have heard this from like young age. Anyway, if you don't know, David is the greatest king to ever rule Israel, all right? That's his thing. He is a man after God's own heart. God loved him so much that Jesus is a descendant of David. All right, there are many prophecies and all sorts. But David isn't who I want to focus on. David is the sideshow for today. The person that I actually want to focus on is Jonathan. Jonathan was David's best friend, and at that time, Jonathan was the son of King Saul. All right, this is before David becomes king. So technically, Jonathan was heir to the throne. He was the prince of Israel. Now that's an awesome role to have. But there's this moment, and it's like right at the beginning of David and Jonathan's relationship, friendship, where Jonathan might have to wrestle with this tension. And we see Jonathan make a decision, all right? And then what I actually want to do is I want to explore Saul's side, his father's side of how he managed that tension as well, and the choice that he made. So, If we go to 1 Samuel 18, I don't know if it's there. There we go. All right. After David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. So now this is after David had beat Goliath, right? The giant with the stones. And so David is talking to Saul. Once he's done talking to Saul, Jonathan and him are like, hey, look, we're best friends. Right? And this is like a simple version of it. In some versions of the Bible, it says that Jonathan's soul was knitted together with David's. They were like inseparable after meeting one another, right? And throughout the story, if you read it in your own time, throughout the story, you see Jonathan and David's friendship go through many, many difficulties. And you see their friendship stay strong throughout all of that. All right? And then it goes on and it says this. He said, and Jonathan made a covenant or promise with David and because he loved him as himself. So David loved him so much, he made a promise. Hey, look, you and I are best friends forever. Forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Right? This is crazy. And then it continues. Jonathan, who's the prince, right, took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David, along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow, and his belt. Now, this is important. I think this is really important for us to recognize because Jonathan is the prince. No prince does this. David was a shepherd boy. He was like the lowest of the low. He looked after the sheep. And here Jonathan is saying, hey, I'm giving you this. He's not saying it because it's a fashion choice. He's not saying, hey, my tunic looks good on you and it's going to bring the color out of your eyes. He's not giving the belt and the sword and the bow as like fashion statements. This is an acknowledgement. This is an acknowledgement that David has great potential. And actually it goes further than that because it's an acknowledgement that David is actually the king of Israel. Now, Jonathan has every right in the world to fight against that. He's the prince. His father is the king. And so he would have wrestled with that tension, seeing someone who is younger than him with this much potential, seeing someone that was made king by God. But instead of choosing to hurt him, Jonathan chooses to acknowledge him. And this is epic. Because this is not the last time that Jonathan helps David. This is not the last time that Jonathan acknowledges that David is actually the king. Because throughout the story, Jonathan saves his life. Jonathan encourages him. Jonathan protects him. Jonathan goes out of his way to make sure that David is set up to win. And so one of these moments is found in Samuel chapter 23. David has run away from Saul. This is the context. He's run away from Saul because Saul is hunting him down, looking to kill him, because David is loved by everyone. Okay? And so this is what it says. It says, while David was in Horesh, in the desert of Ziph, he learned that Saul had come out to take his life. He's terrified. He's scared. He's got no confidence. And so what does Jonathan do? Jonathan, Saul's son, went to David at Horesh and helped him find strength in God. And this is what he says. He says this, don't be afraid, he said. My father Saul will not lay a hand on you. You will be king over Israel, and I will be second to you. This is crazy. This is Jonathan fully accepting, David, you have the potential to be an amazing king. David, you have the potential to lead Israel in a way that I could never do. David, you are the king of Israel, and no one will hurt you, and I will be second to you. This is ridiculous. Because in reality, if we were faced with this, I know if I was faced with this, I would feel iffy about it. I'm giving up the throne. But here, Jonathan, the tension doesn't even exist with him, it seems. because he fully acknowledges it. He says, David, you will be the king. This is crazy. How many of us would react like Jonathan? If we really look at ourselves in whatever position we may be, how many of us would actually react like Jonathan? I don't think I would, in all honesty. I might get there eventually, but not first reaction. If anything, our reactions might be like Saul, or like a duller version of Saul, because he always went to the extreme. Okay? Because this was the mindset of Saul, which was Jonathan's father. All right? This is what it says. It says, when the men were returning home after David had killed the Philistine, so we're jumping back now in the story, all right? So when he came back after David had killed the Philistines, the women came out from all the towns of Israel. It's a party. It's going to be great. To meet King Saul with singing and dancing, with joyful songs and with timbrels and lyres. I don't know what a timbrel is, but it sounds wonderful. It sounds great. Dancing and partying, and it's awesome. And so this is what they sing. And as they danced, they sang, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. Right? The whole of Israel loves David. The whole of Israel realizes David's potential. The whole of Israel looks at David and goes, wow, he is the leader that we really actually need. Right? His praises are sung. And being sung that he was even greater than the king, which is crazy. And maybe we've experienced this in our own lives. But we're doing good work, and we're moving along. And someone else comes and, wow, that person is amazing. It's like, but we're doing the same thing. Wow, that person is amazing. Wow, that person has potential. But this is Saul's reaction, right? Saul was very angry. This refrain, these songs, these dancings, these sayings, it displeased him greatly, right? And so he says this, he says, they have credited David with tens of thousands, he thought, but with me only thousands. What more can he get but the kingdom? We can see Saul already spiraling down. We can see Saul already going, man, this kid has so much more potential than I have. I need to hurt him. And then it says, and from that time on, Saul kept a close eye on David. It would go on in the story, and his relationship with David would deteriorate so badly. He would try to throw a spear at him twice. He would hunt him down for years. He would I don't know, it's crazy. He would do so much in his power to get David, to hurt David, right? So I think we take these two different choices. We take these two different reactions. We can react either like Jonathan, or we can react like Saul. We can either hurt, or we can either help, right? So how many of us can honestly say that in those moments where we have recognized that someone has great potential, where we can see that this person, wow, is amazing, even greater than I, would react the way that Jonathan reacted? Going out of our way to do everything possible to set them up to win. Right? I think this is important to recognize. Because I actually think that this tension and this choice has the potential to derail our year. I think this choice has the potential to actually derail finishing strong or even starting the year strong. Because the outcome of this is, if we choose to hurt, we hold on to a lot of negative feelings. We go out of our way to make sure that that person doesn't do well. Our thoughts and our actions start to become negative towards them. Our relationships might deteriorate with them or the people around us. It's just spiraling out of control. And if you look at the story, Saul does the exact same thing. So I think recognizing this is super important because it has the potential to derail finishing strong. It has the potential to derail the way that we start the year or finish the year. Okay? So I want us to take a moment to think about this. Okay? And actually ask this question. Have you ever felt that someone sees potential in you and actively chooses to set you up to win? I want us to take time to think about this question. Has someone done that for you? For some of us, it's true. For some of us, yeah, there have been many people. And for some of us, it feels like there have been no one. For some of us, we feel in this room that no one sees potential in us. And I think for some of us, we'd go even a step further and say, well, actually, I don't even believe that God sees potential in me. So why would anyone want to set me up to win? But there is hope. There is hope. Because if we jump to the New Testament, which is where Jesus is part of, right? There's a letter written by John in 1 John. And in chapter 4, verse 9 to 10, this is what it says, all right? It says, "This is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world so that we may live through him." And then it goes on and it says, "This is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins." Basically saying, hey, look, we didn't really love God, but God loved us so much that he sent his Son to die for us, that we might be in right standing with God, that everything is a clean slate with him. Now, when I read this, what I see communicated is that God loved us so much and he saw so much potential in us, despite everything that we have done and that we would do, right? And he chose to send his Son, and his Son agreed to go and to die on the cross for us so that we could be set up to win, so that we could fulfill the potential that God saw in us. Because the reality is this, okay? Jesus had every single right not to set us up to win. We chose to put him on the cross. We chose to murder him even though he was an innocent man. He had every single right not to set us up to win. And I feel like God has every right to look at us and go, potential? No. What potential? I don't see potential. But then actually, he goes, wow, look at the potential. Look at what they could become, right? God sees so much potential in us. So what if we had the same mindset? What if we could act the same way Jonathan did towards David? What if when we saw potential in people, what if we, instead of our first thought being, how can I hurt them? How can I hinder them? How can I slow them down? What if our first thought was, hey, how can I set them up to win? God saw so much and sees so much potential in us. So much potential that his Son died on the cross so that we could be set up to win, set up to, and to be set up to reach the potential that he saw, right? For those of us that believe, this is almost like a mandatory thing. If we say that we are Jesus followers, I truly believe that it is our role to set people up to win. It is what we're called to do. And for those of us that don't believe or are exploring, this is great to do. This is something that we should be wanting to do because Jesus did this for us, right? As cheesy as it sounds, it is the truth. Jesus did it for us first. But it's challenging. It's difficult. It's a tension. It's something that's uncomfortable. But I believe it's something that we should be doing. So, how do we do this? I'm nearly at the end. How do we do this? I think there are three things that we can be doing to make sure that we are setting up people to win and we're finishing the year strong. And so the first thing is this. We need to notice the big picture. We need to notice the big picture. Sometimes we get so very caught up in the small picture things. What can I be gaining now? Things that, I don't know, just right in front of our faces. That we forget to notice the big picture. Because when we notice the big picture, it isn't about demeaning ourselves. It isn't about self-deprecating. It's about recognizing what God is able to do through us. It's recognizing that God actually might be using us to set people up, to win, so that they may go forward and they do something amazing for God, or God does something through them amazingly. So I want us to notice the big picture. And this is difficult because it means being real with ourselves. But I think the main thing to remember with this is God sees potential in us, no matter what it is. So notice the big picture. The second one is shift our perspective. This follows on from noticing the big picture, because when we notice the big picture, our perspective shifts on certain things. Our perspective shifts on ourselves, where we can go, hey, look, I might not actually be top dog, and that is okay. Maybe what I'm actually called to do is to set someone else up, is to set up so that others might win. And so that shifts our perspective on other people then. Because instead of seeing them as a threat, instead of seeing them as someone that I need to compete with constantly, all over again, all the time, it's someone that I need to help. It's someone that I need to walk alongside. It is someone that I see that can do great things. And so I will do everything in my power, like Jonathan, to set them up to win. So that's the second one. Shift our perspective. Actually, there's a third part of that. It actually shifts our perspective on God. Because during those moments where we're going, why does this person have greater potential than me? It makes no sense. We had this tendency to go, well, God doesn't really love me then. God doesn't really see that potential in me then. God doesn't want me to succeed. But when we notice the big picture, we actually realize that actually God sees so much potential in us. God wants us to succeed. God actually sent his son so that we will be set up to win, right? So those are the three things. And then the last one is this, is make a choice, all right? After all of that, after we notice the big picture, after we shift our perspective, we still have a choice to make. Because we can do all those things and still go, no, I'm going to hurt them. I'm going to hinder them. Make a choice. Choose whether you want to help them, all right, if we go to the next slide, or choose if you want to hurt them or hinder them. Make that choice. So those are the three things to remember, all right? Let's finish the year strong. We have 5 days. Is it 26? Yeah, 5 days. We have 5 days. Let's finish that year strong. Let's go back, remember the things that we talked about in this series, because I truly believe that there are values and there are things that actually help us to finish the year strong. Because I believe when we're finishing this year strong, with everything that is going on throughout the year, we're actually starting next year strong. We're starting next year with a good footing. We're starting next year where we can feel great about it. All right? So let's finish this year strong so that we're setting up next year strong. I want to leave us with the last thing from Hebrews 12, the last verse. All right. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. Let's remember this. This is an amazing verse. When we're faced with adversity, when we're faced with whatever it is, we can come to this and we can remember that Jesus ran that race first. He came victorious. And like Wes said last week, if he's already done that, if he's already run that race and won it for us, all we need to do is step up onto that podium. That's what he's asking for us. Just step up to the podium. Let's finish the year strong. Yeah. Let me pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this year. It's been a wild year. It's been a year of extreme lows. It's been a year of highs. It's been a year of uncertainty. It's a year of loss. It's a year of just craziness. But Lord, throughout this year, we've seen you move in such amazing ways. We've seen you move in people's hearts, in people's minds, in people's lives. Lord, I pray that over the next 5 days that we finish the year strong. I pray that we finish this year strong so that we are setting up next year to be even stronger. Lord, thank you so much for seeing the potential in us. Thank you so much for loving us in a way that, that you set us up to win, to reach that potential. Lord, I pray for everyone here and everyone that's not here as well. I pray that they finish the year strong. I pray that they start the next year even stronger. And I pray that everything that we've explored in this Finish Strong series, Lord, that we remember, that we put it into practice, that we actually have a choice to make. Please be with us. Please be with us as we celebrate the new year. Thank you so much for who you are and everything that you've done. In Jesus' name, amen.